So, as some of you might know, maybe you don't, you haven't been keeping up, but my Xbox was acting weird for quite a long time, and I wasn't really sure what the deal was with it, but basically, the whole crux of the situation was I would click on an app, or I'd click on a game, and it would say it was taking too long, and I would get some kind of error, and it would say, try it again, and then if I hard reset my Xbox, then finally I'd be able to, maybe load something. It would finally load something. It would just take a very long time, and considering that Xbox Series X has quick resume and all this kind of stuff, I thought it was a little bit odd that was kind of happening. And so I contacted Microsoft, and they were like, well, that's an issue with some people thanks to an update. Now I want to remind everybody that I don't have my Xbox in the preview program, like the super high up preview program or anything like that. So it's not like I'm getting beta software that should be doing this. This was just a regular update apparently that kind of messed with my Xbox. So eventually there was a time where I went in there and I saw that there was an update available, so I updated my Xbox and things were running a little bit better. Now 2 days ago I went to go start up my Xbox, and it was like, okay, and then it comes up on the screen, I see it on the TV, and it's like updating, and it goes, whatever, your Xbox may turn on and off during the updates, etc., etc. So I'm like waiting there a minute, and I was like, okay, no big deal. So I come back, and the Xbox, and then there's an error sign on there, and it says that it wasn't able to update my Xbox, right? There was a problem. So now my Xbox is completely screwed. Right, it's completely bricked. I'm like, what do you got to do now? So it's like, okay, troubleshoot. So my options are this: I can try to reset my Xbox again, which obviously I'm going to do because I don't want to go through all the hassles of having to factory reset my Xbox again, because that's something that I used to have to do years ago all the time. That's why I left the higher up preview program, because it was constantly like some kind of hassle that was happening, and I hated that. It was just such a drag to go out there and do it, and I can tell you one reason why it was a drag was because I game share with my brother, and I don't know his information, right? So if you guys know anything about game sharing, it's like he signs in on his console with my name and sets it as the home Xbox, and vice versa. So I would need, and I don't have his, he doesn't have my password, I don't have his, so I would have had to get a hold of my brother and been like, okay, I need your password, your email, all this stuff again, because I have to be able to do this, blah blah blah, this happened. So anyway, I was like, well, let me try resetting it again. So I did that, same thing happened, started downloading the update, and bricked, nothing. So it's like, what do you do now? So I was like, well, let me try it one more time, do it one more time, and nothing. So that basically leaves me with two options. One option is I get a USB drive and I download an update, an offline update, and then I install that onto my Xbox. I can do that, right? Or I can do something else altogether. Which is basically I would have to factory reset my console. Now, if I factory reset my console, I'm back to doing the aforementioned issue, where I'm going to have to get a hold of my brother, and I'm going to give me his password, all this kind of stuff, right? So I was like, I'd really rather not be able to do that. So I go, and I'm like, okay, well, let me try to install the offline update. USB, blah blah blah, plug that in, blah blah blah. Okay, great, sounds good. But then what happens is, guess what? Yep, you guessed it, same problem. It's a bit of an issue, a bit of a real issue there. The fact that this kind of happened the way that it did, and so I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to factory reset my Xbox. So by the way, I take good care of my consoles, I clean them out, I make sure that there's no dust, I make sure that there's no issues like that. I unplugged all my external drives, I unplugged my my expansion drive. So basically it's just my Xbox, it doesn't run hot, it doesn't run loud, there's no issue like that. So I have to factory reset my Xbox. Thankfully this worked, and I will say, to Microsoft's credit, they've improved the factory reset, right? So you can keep your games, but also I was able to keep my brother's account and everything and my account on this thing without having to enter in a bunch of new stuff to re-download the profile and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool that they were able to kind of do that, and I was pretty thankful that happened at the end of the day. But this new update, whatever it is, if you see one, be careful, be wary, although I'm sure it's probably not going to affect everybody's. It finally seemed to have my Xbox running the way that it should, and hey, that's a good thing for me, because at the end of the day, it does feel like sometimes there's these issues with the Xbox, and it's a little bit of a problem. So again, I honestly hope that there's something that kind of changes before too long, and I hope that Microsoft kind of changes how they handle some of these things. And Microsoft, realistically, in my opinion anyway, they don't really seem to do a lot of these things that help the fans, or like these whole updates things. They used to be worthwhile, right? That's why I remember at a time I was doing videos on this channel about updates in the preview program. You had to be accepted into the preview program, right? And you could send invitations. That's how popular the preview program was, because they were actually doing some pretty awesome preview program things. And now the fact of the matter is that they're not doing anything hardly for the Xbox. Like, they're doing general stability, and it's still screwing up the consoles. So yeah, it is a little bit weird. It's a shame. I did manage to get mine worked out, thankfully, but there's nothing like worse than, I like consoles for a lot of reasons, but I think easeability, usability, fun, plug and play factor, like those are the things that I really enjoy about Xbox. And it just is a shame when it feels like some of these things are kind of falling apart, and they're making it a worse and worse experience for no real reason that I can think of. So that's probably a big issue right there, and hopefully that's something that in the future we could see kind of go the other way. It's like, if we're getting updates, these updates should be to improve things, to make things even better, and it just feels like Microsoft is not really doing that, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's like, have you guys had any problems with updates? I know some of you were having issues like I was with your console, where it was taking forever to load up something, but we'll see. Like, I'm just curious to see, because I check the comments and stuff like that, which I try to get back in there, but I've just been extremely busy lately. And I sit there and I try to do the best that I can with reading and responding, and I'll jump back in and start doing that more here soon. But for me anyway, it was interesting to see that I wasn't the only one that was kind of suffering with a lot of these issues. And for me personally, I think that is very cool to see that like you're not alone in something. So again, we live in this kind of world where these things are continuing to happen, and our consoles are no longer static, so we get updates. But are we past the point where Xbox is going to get updates that are going to actually do things and help things? Like that's my point. Like, I hope that we are going to get to that point, because otherwise it's really super crappy. Just to be kind of honest about it, I realistically, like, it sucks when you're getting these updates and your games are unplayable. Like, you can't do anything. It's a really crappy feeling. And to be honest with you, like, I don't want to be down to where I have to pay $650 for another Xbox Series X for my thousands of games because they break my console, and they're not going to cover any of that if something happens to it. It's, I got mine at launch. So yeah, like nobody's gonna really cover that or care about that. If it breaks, it's ridiculous. So anyway, at least it had somewhat of a happy ending, and I'm glad that happened. That I was able to kind of get that worked out without having to go through too much rigmarole. But if you guys are having a problem, like I said, the factory reset thing isn't nearly as bad as it used to be. The worst part is you're gonna have to log in with your information on any app like Netflix, Disney, all that kind of stuff. You're going to have to kind of log in again, which is a real kind of pain in the butt. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Rack 'em up. Prep Gamer out.